Hello and welcome again to the Rider Review. This is Eric Carrot Rider, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2015 movie titled Run All Night. Now, Run All Night is an action gangster film which runs for an hour and 54 minutes long. It is directed by Jaume Collet-Serra. It is produced by Roy Lee, Michael Tadros, and Brooklyn Weaver. The script was done by Brad Inglesby. The score was done by Junkie XL. The cinematography was done by Martin Rui. And the editing was done by Dirk Westenvelt. And the stars of the movie are Liam Neeson, Joel Kinnaman, Ed Harris, Common, Boyd Holbrook, Bruce McGill, Vincent D'Onofrio, Lois Smith, Genesis Rodriguez, and Nick Nolte. Now, situated in the early scenes in a boxing gym, that is pretty much just a great way to kickstart the movie Run All Night. One that's saturated with fine fundamentals added to just a touch of vivacity. Yes, you may say that this is just another familiar territory for Liam Neeson to play another badass who's out to save his estranged son whose life is hanging in the balance. Unlike his other crime action films, Olivier Megaton is not directing this one. Calling the shots this time around is Jaume Collet-Serra, and he's definitely one of the best guys directing in this generation. Collet-Serra and Neeson are definitely no strangers to one another, as they have collaborated in two films before this one. There was Unknown, which came out in 2011, and Nonstop, which came out in 2014. And these two films exhibit beyond Neeson's physique, but his vulnerability is matched with his mournful gravitas. Neeson in this movie plays the role of Jimmy Conlon, a pathetic chump placed in an embarrassing predicament by playing Santa Claus at a Christmas party, led by his old boss, Sean McGuire, played by Ed Harris. And even that, he still manages to screw that up. At one time, Conlon was an established hitman who has kind of lost his touch and now spends his time gulping down Jamesons at a pub where he and McGuire hung out, and together they would at one time paint the town red. Red in blood, that is. One night, Sean's son, Danny, played by Boyd Holbrook, attempted to murder Jimmy's son, Mike, played by Joel Kinnaman. But in the end, it is Jimmy that kills Danny instead, leading for a vengeful night of pure anarchy in the span of just one night, hence the title. Suddenly, overnight, Jimmy's trigger finger is resurrected, and the blood party is now in full gear. You see, the reason why uh, Danny McGuire was threatening to kill Jimmy's son Mike was because, aside from Jimmy being a boxing trainer and a mentor for families with from single parent establishments, he also works as a limo rider. And one night he was picking up Danny, as well as a couple of Albanians who were trying to negotiate a deal with Sean. And because Mike watched the scenes as Danny kills these two Albanians, for fear of getting caught, Danny eventually shows up at Mike's house and attempts to kill Mike. However, Jimmy steps in, kills Danny, and now both Jimmy and Mike are both on the run. So that's kind of like how it all came about. One of the best things about this movie is that the plot never meanders and Collet-Serra's direction sticks to the point. At times his focus is primarily to get each of his shots to the very last detail while succeeding in keeping it legible. Even the sky view of the repeated helicopter are revived from cliched jagged abbreviation. The effects in this movie are just simply breathtaking. The car chases going by way of the Brooklyn Queens Expressway through the hustling traffic on Jamaica Avenue and directly into a storefront as it flowed through the escarpment of utter chaos. It seems like Collet-Serra took pages out of the books of classic crime action films from the directors of the 70s of the likes of William Friedkin and Walter Hill, while never showing any disloyalty along the way. In many ways, a lot of these epic car chases in this movie is very much similar to that of the 1971 movie that William Friedkin directed called The French Connection. If you ever get a chance to see this movie, I would suggest you rent it. Or maybe it'll pop up somewhere on websites like Putlocker or Sockshare or whatnot. I give nod to Hill because the fisticuffs in the subway bathroom is pretty reminiscent to the 1979 film The Warriors, though Collet-Serra simply adds asphyxiation with the help of a hand towel. Other symbolic set pieces like visual anchors or the flaming torches are esoterically used for points of reference as to where all the exciting action is going to take place. But of those scenes centered around but of those scenes that center around Andrew Price, played by Common, a killer for hire who terminates cops, and until he showed up, the body count was actually fairly minimal. Common, who plays this hitman, he was real badass. He almost kind of has a bit of that Terminator thing going for him. I mean, it seems like the guy is resilient and he just never gives up. He kind of reminds me of that episode of The Simpsons, where Principal Skinner was chasing Bart Simpson and, he just kept going. That resiliency kind of reminds me of a lot like Common's character, Andrew Price. And sure, the movie may not always be coherent. Collet-Serra still succeeds in maintaining realism and keeping every situation plausible. When it comes to casting, Collet-Serra remained concrete in terms of casting decisions, but he pulled it off quite effectively. And by hiring reputable performers, he demands that his cast embody the unusual convictions towards each other. For example, there is great chemistry between Liam Neeson and Ed Harris, and they both never looked better, and their acting is both elevated in terms of delivering action and dialogue. Another nod actually also goes out to a small cameo uncredited performance by Nick Nolte, who plays Jimmy's brother Eddie, who still lives with his mother. He has a scruffy beard, rotting teeth, and a tattered old sweater that exposes his disheveled chest. It's like living the old Irish community, only this time it's in the trenches of NYC. The movie is situated primarily in the Brooklyn, Queens area of New York, where the inhabitants are living near an industrial area. There were a bit of errors in geography and through timeline, but Collet-Serra handles the situation cautiously. The action is definitely set on a rainy December night, and while this is going on, the Rangers are taking on the New Jersey Devils in a game happening at MSG, which actually becomes quite a focal plot point in the story. Okay, you don't get any cameo appearances from the NHL players, but the game between the Rangers and the Devils is seen in practically a lot of scenes. And I thought that was pretty effective. So, okay, maybe you won't see any cameo appearance from Henrik Lundqvist, but, I'm willing to live with that. Unless winter is arriving late. Winter thunderstorms in New York City in December seems quite surreal. But the detailed landscape of the Big Apple is very well nuanced. Like when Jimmy unlocks a car door with a shoelace, or when he scopes out the pub. There, he terminates every one of Maguire's thugs. These moments are truly priceless, and sure, many will say that it's another long line of Liam Neeson's action films, but to me it truly stands out as one of the best. I mean, I would really, truly, highly recommend this movie if you never got a chance to see it. And if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give it a 9. It's really that great. If you're into like high flying action movies with a little bit of drama and a little bit of redemption. There's also a bit of a redemption story, like I said, Mike Conlon was not very inviting to his father Jimmy because of his line of work and because of the fact that Mike is a family man. He's got a lovely wife. He's got 2 daughters, and she's pregnant, so she's expecting a third one, which I believe they're expecting a boy, although it's hard to tell. But he doesn't want his father to go like anywhere near them, and he wasn't exactly particularly very happy of that he had to be caught in the middle of this. But the only reason why Jimmy brought him into this world was not because he wanted to, it was because he had to. There was no choice. Sean Maguire wasn't just gonna let this get away. The other I also found kind of interesting is that Vincent D'Onofrio has kind of came back in this movie. Of course, everybody remembers him as Detective Robert Gorin on Law and Order: Criminal Intent. In a way, he's kind of like back in the detective's chair. Maybe he's gone by a different name. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, he's practically back with Major K Squad in a movie, and he's got himself a new partner because he practically is almost just playing off his Detective Gorin character from Criminal Intent in this movie. Yeah, he's a detective, although except for he's now going by the name of John Harding. So I actually thought that was actually kind of amusing. But that's just one of the many things in this movie too. He actually did pull the role off quite well, even though he was kind of like channeling in his inner Gorin. So I guess this kind of ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening in. If you like to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Remember, be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Ryder saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.